On today's episode of The Unwritten Rule, we have two great interviews coming up. After this intro, we're going to cut to ourselves. First off, doing the Tennessee preview. We're looking at the Tennessee game. We talked to former Tennessee running back and one of the hosts of Bleav in Tennessee football. Jay Graham is joining us for that great interview with him. He was really awesome to talk to. Talked all about the game, a little bit about his career as well, both in college and then went to the pros. So great interview with Jay. And then we'll cut to ourselves after that with another very special guest. We teased it a little bit during the week, but we talked to one of the big, both literally and just with his recruiting rankings and stuff, one of the big 2024 men's basketball recruits, Trent Burns. Talked to Trent just about his time deciding on coming to the Tigers and just talked with him about basketball. That was a great interview as well. So both those interviews for you. Then we'll do quick hits. Then we're going to finish the show. We're going to preview the Mizzou men's basketball game against Memphis. We'll recap the Arkansas Pine Bluff game too, and just talk some Mizzou men's hoops with the Tigers set to play their second game here on a Friday night. So great show for you guys. Two awesome interviews. Like I said, again, talking to Jay and then Trent. So should be a fun show coming up. And with that, the Unwritten Rule is presented by Bet Online. The last of the major pro sports leagues is off and rolling, and college basketball is ready to go as well. We have that underway, and Bet Online remains your top spot for all your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL, all in full swing, and Bet Online is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. We'll have our Fantastic Four NFL picks. We use the Bet Online spreads for those, of course. So all the hoops betting action along with every sport available right at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to Bet Online today and remember to use our promo code Bleav. That's BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. So with that, we will have the intro and then we will cut to our interview with Jay Graham previewing the Mizzou Tennessee game. The Unwritten Rule starts right now.
Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Bleav Network, alongside Peyton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Okay, we now welcome on a very, very special guest. He is a former Tennessee running back. We had to bring on an expert as we're previewing Mizzou, Tennessee this week. So former Tennessee running back and one of the hosts in Bleav in Tennessee football. We're doing another little Bleav Network crossover. It's Jay Graham. Jay, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. We were loving your energy when we were talking before. I want to start with this. Obviously, we're going to dive into this here with Mizzou, Tennessee, but you're number 8 all time in Tennessee rushing yards. I'm sure a legend around there. What was it just like to play for the Vols? And can you just touch a little bit about your career? Cause I know it was pretty decorated at the college level and then you went and played pro as well. I was just curious on that off the bat.
Well, it all started with, I'm out of North Carolina. I had a great opportunity to get a scholarship to go to the University of Tennessee. I showed up. Coach Fulmer told me all these things about, the storied history of running backs and how, Reggie Cobb, Chuck Webb, and all that stuff. What he didn't tell me is I would be sitting on kickoff return team, pointing down the line, and then I would have Kevin Carter to block, on the front line playing against Florida. I'm like, this is not what I envisioned as far as playing football at Tennessee. But over time, I learned, to play the game and what it took, to play the game. So I was fortunate to get a chance to be coached by Coach Fulmer and Randy Sanders, my position coach. And I developed, each week and got better and better and got a chance to go into the NFL. So to all those college kids that don't love special teams, I became a special teams coordinator because I found a love for special teams. But I ain't going to talk just about me and my playing days because I got a whole lot of games that I can talk about.
We do.
In it, but you guys go ahead with it. But that's kind of in a nutshell, kind of my career at Tennessee.
Definitely.
And, as a former running back, before you jumped on here, we talked a little bit about Cody Schrader, and you said, he's having an exceptional year. I mean, what are you seeing from him? And I know the Tennessee run defense has been pretty good. Only only allowing 97.3 rushing yards per game. I mean, how are they going to stop Cody Schrader? And what have you seen from Cody Schrader?
Here's the thing about Cody Schrader, because you look at running backs and you go, okay, this guy's elusive. This guy's has speed. Cody has all those things, but the thing that I think stands out the most is if you're a defensive coordinator and you draw up the defense and you say, I'm going to put 3 guys here to tackle him. You tackle him, but he gains 6 yards. You hit him again, he gains 4 or 5 more yards. He's really good at yards after contact, which you don't have he can make that cut. He can do those things, but he, you don't notice the little movements, right? He just slides a tackler just a little bit. We talk about, I coach running backs for a lot of years, and it's how you turn your shoulders and then return them back to square. He's really good, has phenomenal change of direction and hip flexibility. He can run with power. He can run with speed. It's more about acceleration than speed. So I think he can go from 0 to 100 really fast on you. So there's no question. He has 919 yards rushing right now. I mean, it says a lot, about the running back coach. I think it's Curtis Looper, right? There's no coincidence that that's his coach, and the guy's doing very well. So you got to go hats off to a veteran running back coach, okay, that's done very well over the years with those types of backs. So, those are the things that I see with Cody.
Have you seen a guy like him before? Coming up from the D2 level and then just kind of turning it on at the highest level in Division I?
That's amazing. He came out of, that shows you the parity, right? He came out of Truman State, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he showed up out of nowhere. It's like, man, who is this guy, right? So that's where the transfer portal is kind of having its effect. It's not necessarily, I'm going to go over here to, USC and get a guy, There's running backs all over the place. So, they did a good job with their evaluation and recruiting department. Go find, a guy that can really help us. And, for a guy like that, Cody Schrader, you may never know about him. You got guys like that in the NFL, and this is how it happens. But, that transition, he runs like he has a chip on his shoulder. He runs like he has something to prove. And I think his team plays that way too. His offensive line, let's talk about them big boys, that experienced group. Delgado, a road grader, right? I forget the left tackle's name, Foster. That's the problem when you look at our defensive line facing them. We got some guys up front, right? We've been able to stop the run, but those guys are experienced, and they're probably as good as any in the conference, talking about Missouri's offensive line, as far as experience. You got a left tackle that's, probably a pro prospect. You got a guard that's a pro prospect. I'm talking about mid-range and maybe even higher than that, that can really move some guys. And you go watch tape. They move some guys that are pretty good, so that's the fears, make sure that you fit and you can fit a hole. You can put a defensive lineman there. You better put the right one there in order to, play that gap.
Wanted to switch just to the other run game. Tennessee, this year, it's kind of been a flip of what, we're used to from Josh Heupel's offense. It's not been the big, deep shots every play like it was just last year with Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, and Hendon Hooker. They have been an exceptional run game. Jalen Wright, he's ripping off like almost 8 yards a carry or something this year. How has this team gone from last year being just so pass happy to this year being such a great run team on offense, just so seamlessly?
Well, you look at this, it's similar. It's very similar. You got a running back in Jalen Wright who, has a chip on his shoulder. He's going to run hard every week. He's always got something to prove. He's a tackle breaker. But he also has the speed to create explosive plays. You have a veteran offensive line front that's really the heart of the offense, right? The same flip side there, I would say, you guys could probably speak to that better than me, but I would say that offensive line is the strength of, the receivers can run too, but it's the strength of Missouri's offense, and probably has the leadership within that. We have the leadership within that offensive line, so that's the thing with Jalen. He's a tackle breaker, and he has the speed to go 82 yards. He has the speed to break off those long runs, no matter who it is, and he's played his best games in the limelight, in the big one, on the big stage. And this will be one of those games. And playing against a strong defensive team in Missouri, that's been able to play well. But that's the key. I think, it's really similar to matchup right there. But that's the thing that I see about Jalen Wright's game is high. He's 7.5 yards a carry. He don't have the touchdown production, right? But I think they're going to start giving it to him more and more in the red zone, especially against a team that's one of the top in the country in the red zone in Missouri.
Definitely. I do want to ask about that pass game and going from, Hooker to now Joe Milton. What's been your take on how he's kind of progressed this year? I know preseason there was, he's throwing oranges out of the stadium. We know the deep threat.
Right.
I know, Heupel likes to line his receivers up, really wide and kind of try and stretch the field when they do pass. But how have you seen his offense kind of, change, or at least the passing game change around Milton and then his development so far this year?
That's a great question. And I probably would have answered it differently a month ago.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at it and, there's been a lot of things happening. Joe is taking the brunt of this, Brew McCoy got hurt. You lost, two NFL receivers in Tillman and Hyatt, right? So he took the brunt of, hey, Hendon Hooker is gone. So what are we going to do right now, right? And he's taken it and done very well. He's been a leader out there. It hadn't been any complaining, but he's taken a lot from fans that say like, well, can we throw this and can we throw that? When it's not all just him, you got a young group of receivers that got to get open, right? That he has to learn that are running bending routes a little bit flatter than usual, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you lose a young man like Brew McCoy, that got a gruesome injury, prayers out to him and his family, but that, changed everything, right? So you go a month ago, right? And you look at all the things that we went through. I think the first half of that Alabama game was the confidence that was needed. The second half, we didn't like it.
Right.
It wasn't what you wanted, right? But the first half, you could see some of those young guys, Squirrel White, got starting to step up. He's a leading receiver for Tennessee, and you're starting to see all these other guys, Ramel Keaton, all these guys are starting to step up and show some things, show their development. Thornton, the transfer that came in from Oregon, he's starting to show up. He showed up last 2 weeks ago in the game against Kentucky. So, we're a team that if you look at us 4 weeks ago, we look like a totally different team now because of those young guys are starting to step up. And, as a coach, I always say this, game 8, 9, 10, and 11, that's when you start finding out where your development came with your new guys. And some of those guys are new, those transfers, but they're all new when you have to depend on them in a different way.
Missouri enters this week as one of like the best teams in the red zone. I mean, they've completed the most touchdowns of really any NCAA team. On the flip side, Tennessee is 21 touchdowns and 41 red zone trips. I mean, is that kind of a weakness for this offense? I know we just talked about the development, seeing a lot more guys stand up. But has that been a weakness in the past of this year?
It sure is. You're spot on. I mean, it's scary, right? The red zone woes have been tough, right? You go in, you play in Alabama in the first half, you got them on the ropes, but you got to kick field goals, and eventually that's going to catch up with you. We did a whole lot better against Kentucky, right? We scored more touchdowns. We took some chances sometime outside of the red zone, right? To get really closer in the red zone, right? Because the worst place you want to be on third down is on the 8-yard line. Because now you got an 18-yard field, right? You just ain't got that much space, and you got to get it in the end zone. So we've been doing a better job of running, getting more creative in the red zone, But when we play against a Missouri team that's, you guys are lights out in the red zone, You got to take some chances. Sometimes we didn't take chances, right? Like the end of the half of Kentucky, and we decided to kick a field goal, right? Instead of going up 3, you got to go for touchdowns now. You got to take chances in this game just because of the pressure you guys going to put on our Tennessee team by the way you score touchdowns, right? And that difference of 4 points, you can't just kick field goals. You'll be down pretty fast if you do.
And we were talking before we started, just recording. This game, even just 2 or 3 years ago, not super relevant. These teams were both kind of just spinning their wheels. But now, if this was next year, this would maybe be a game for like the last spot in the playoff. So this game, now it's got the CBS broadcast. So what does it mean, to Tennessee to kind of get back up to that nationally relevant level? Last year they were number one. And how kind of cool is it to see this game kind of mean something? Because it's not your typical SEC blue blood matchup.
Yes, I was in the first one, right? So 2012, I'm coaching at Tennessee. We playing against, I think that was the first year Missouri, was in the SEC. And, we're both not doing so well, right? And that was quite a game if anybody would have watched, but I doubt anybody watched it, Peyton. Ain't nobody watched that game. It went like 5 overtimes, I think half the fans in the crowd, they just left in the stands, And I was like, please, somebody score and win this game because we wanted that win so bad. Both sides wanted that win so bad. We were fighting hard to get it. So you look at this year, look how both of these teams are 2 top 10 teams in my eyes, right? In my eyes. I know the voters do what they do, right? But you got 2 top 10 teams playing right now on CBS, right? And you can just see the maturation of the programs within the SEC, which is difficult in itself. But they're playing for a spot. I think about, like I said it before, like Thanksgiving. When I was a kid, I didn't want to sit at the little kid table. I wanted to sit with the adults over there. I wanted to sit at the big kid table. We want to sit at the table with the Georgias, right? And with the Alabamas, right? Now we're at that threshold right there. This game is relevant right here, and it decides who goes to the big table. It decides who takes that step across to that upper echelon team. So, I think that's the key of this game. This game is a crossroad game for a number of reasons. You got Dirkowitz, you got, Heupel. We both love our coaches on both sides, right? We're happy with what we have, and we want them to stay there a long time. But this is a big time step. This is a big time threshold mark, I think, for both programs and how they've matured over the last 3 years.
It's interesting. It's like funny hearing you say that because we had Vinny Hardy, who hosts the Bleav in Kentucky show, and the way he described that game too was like, all of these teams right now behind Georgia in the East, it's just kind of like scratching and clawing to be that like second team, like you said, kind of being at the adult table, like you said, right, with the best of the best. And that'll be nice too, like Peyton said, with the playoff expanding, this game will start to matter a lot more. Which is huge. And I want to ask, because you mentioned Heupel and Drinkwitz. Of course, Heupel at Tennessee now, was at Missouri for a year or so prior as the quarterback's coach. Just wanted to get your take on him and the job he's done, obviously, to bring that program into this spotlight, and just your thoughts on how he's grown as a coach since he's been there.
Well, I will tell you this. I was on the last staff, right? So I know the things, right?
Yeah.
And to see the how fast, the changing of the culture, right? Which is really culture. We're talking about how we do things, and you got to make guys believe that, right? You got to work with them and make sure there's a certain level of care to change the culture, right? And, to see that maturation that fast, right? That showed me a whole lot. That told me. Now, I was only here for a year, right? But when I knew what the problems were, right, to change that mindset, right, that culture that fast, it says a whole lot about Heupel. I look at those things. I look at how we warm up. I look at how we align. I look at, we don't see guys in the newspaper doing that. I listen to the interviews, about how guys talk about each other. They know what to answer and what not to answer. They and it's natural. They talk about the leadership in each room. They talk about how, Joe Milton is playing video games with his players, right? He's spending time with them, going through the playbook. That's a changing culture to me. And that's the only thing that can help your program, when a Hendon Hooker leaves, Joe can step in, right? And then now Nico will step in. and that's how that says a whole lot. When you get a guy hurt, is that next guy ready? He is, because his teammates have been there and they've been working together. So, that's a testament to him. That's a testament to his coaching staff. And I've heard nothing but great things. I've seen nothing but great things from Heupel. And there's one thing about the record. Yeah, the record says one thing, but you got to have that first. You got to have those things in place. Those are the things that lead to winning. And that's what he's done. And he gets it and he understands it. And I just like the guy, He just seemed like normal guy, man. It's not like this person that's this figure. He just normal guy. Like he be sitting in the front of his yard, just hanging out on the porch, And I like them kind of guys,
Yeah.
And he comes across as everybody's neighbor. And I like that.
Yeah. Talking about these changes in the SEC, college football, I mean, you've seen it firsthand as a coach and a player, a lot more than what we do. But for Tennessee and Missouri, it's been, close all time, 5-6. And it doesn't always feel like that on the Missouri side, especially with Tennessee just kind of owning the series the last 4 years. But for the changes in the SEC with Oklahoma and Texas coming in now, what are your thoughts on kind of, the change of the landscape? Tennessee's not going to face Mizzou next year. We don't know the next time these two teams will face after this year. I mean, what do these changes kind of mean to you and like going away with these like permanent rivals?
Well, I think you still have to keep the permanent rivals as much as you can. I think for Missouri, it brings back some of the old rivalries, right? That have been in, which is good, of their storied history. And I think the expansion, is great, as long as the other teams, like I always think about the mid-majors. I always think about the FCS teams that come that you might have to knock off the schedule to play a extra game. I don't know how that works. That schedule will change things a little bit, right? But it's probably better for college football as a whole. If they're going to expand the playoff, I think it makes sense. But I think adding Oklahoma, it's always good to add Oklahoma and Texas, right? I mean, it's going to get interesting, right? And I mean, I think it does nothing but help the media, the dollars that come from that and all that. It's really going to help the conference. It's going to help the universities. It's going to eventually trickle down and help the players. So there's nothing but good things about that. I just don't know how they're going to get the scheduling done. Traveling to Oklahoma, if you're playing, if you're at Kentucky, you got to go all the way there and then come back after a game. They just got to make sure they make that right for the kid, so that, this isn't getting too hard on amateur players. I guess they're not amateurs with the NIL, but they still are kids, right? So those are the things that I think about. That's probably too much to think about, but I think about the travel. I think about how it affects players. I see the positives of how it affects universities, which eventually it goes down to players, and I think it will be good overall for college football.
Just wanted to ask at least one more question about the game. I know that this season, I've mentioned earlier, kind of like the anti-Heupel on offense, just being such a strong rushing team as opposed to passing. Also, that's what's really stood out. Tennessee's defense has really taken a big step forward this year. Who are some of the playmakers that maybe Missouri fans should watch out for on that side of the ball? And what's been the key for the growth of that unit?
I think the key for the growth is the culture. I mean, and Banks does a phenomenal job, I hope no college comes along and tries to make him the next head coach. We got to make sure we pay this man enough, that he can still stay our defensive coordinator and feel great about that. Because what he does on defense is very difficult, just speaking from an offensive coaching perspective. He's gonna give you movements. He's gonna give you variations of 4 down. He's gonna give you 3 down. He's just as multiple as you could be on offense. He can do the same on defense. His pressures are very good. His scheme is really good. The guys that stand out, I mean, I'm gonna start with James Pierce because he's just, he's a dangerous threat. He's one of those guys that's a game wrecker, right? When he's coming off the edge, you can have the best pass play in the world. He's wide open. He's sat. Your quarterback sat. He can do it at a high level. Some of the young players, not even a young player, talking about Beasley, the middle linebacker. He does a phenomenal job. His pass rush is key. He's a leader. He's very smart. He can cover as well as blitz. Beasley's a guy that's another, he's one of those guys that's a game wrecker. McDonald, the nickel, he can make plays all over the place. He can cover like a corner. He can hit like a safety. He's been phenomenal, this whole year. Inside, Omar Norman Lott, has really been doing a good job. He's a transfer from Arizona State has come in. He's strong. He's physical. He plays hard. He's been a guy that's been making a difference. So there's a lot of guys to talk about, but I think that 5 or 6 guys, along with those younger guys like Elijah Herring, is a young linebacker that stepped into that starting role and is leading Tennessee in tackles. He's a bigger guy, that can run and play ball. The biggest thing that they have is a 4-man rotation, 8-man rotation at defensive line. This is the first time they've had that since I can remember that they feel good about. So Rodney Garner has done a great job. You guys know about them defensive linemen in the SEC. You get them banged up, you're going to be in trouble, right? Along with the offensive linemen. So we're able to rotate those guys and keep them fresh, but also, keep them away from injuries, which happen when you get tired. So excited about our defense. We've been up and down a little bit, right? I don't like what Missouri does with all the sweeps, all the motions, all that stuff. That's been something that's been our Achilles heel at times, right? So we got to make sure we, cover down on those things, but still cover the run. So very excited about our defense. We're able to stop the run. We got to keep getting better and better. We've been pretty good on third down as of late, but in the red zone, we've done fairly well, but we haven't played the caliber of red zone team like Missouri.
Yeah. I almost, Peyton, you like half stole my question because I was gonna double down on the defense too, because one thing that Georgia did really well, they have some phenomenal DB play, and I know for Tennessee they had Kamal Haddon go down early, and he had those 3 picks like in the first couple games of the year. But it looks like a lot of these DBs, have kind of picked up the slack, like you said. I don't know if you have any more takes on like just that, zeroing in on that part. It's obviously seems key that they have a good D-line, but
what's crazy? It's like Kamal, we were on Kamal. We were like, man, can he cover guys closer? Can we do this a little bit better? And he got a pick. We like, man, if Kamal would just stop covering grass, we watched the Florida game and things were happening. And then as soon as he get good and he had a pick 6, he's playing at a high level, he get his shoulder. He get his shoulder, and then we're like, what are we going to do without Kamal? It's just like that highs and lows, right? And those young guys have stepped up. We've had to adjust some things, right? We can't afford to get any more guys beat up in the secondary. We're not that deep back there, and it takes so long. That's playing DB is hard. But, DB in this conference, in DB against Missouri, I mean, y'all got 3 guys that, oh, my goodness, can score from anywhere. They're explosive. They can win the 50-50 balls. They're pretty good. And on the flip side, you talked about Missouri's DBs. Just a note right there.
Yeah,
I'm looking at Kentucky game, in the second half. It's a close game, right? All of a sudden, it's just picks. When one of your DBs come downhill and hit a running back, boom, fumble. Next thing you know, it's 2 picks in a row. Now it's 35-21. I mean, out of nowhere. So those guys are explosive. And I'm not talking about plays where guys just made mistakes and dropped it. No, these are created turnovers, which I think is something that's hard to do, and it takes experience, and that's what you guys have.
My next question here is kind of looking back at some of these road games that Tennessee has had, and I mean, it's like a total flip in what Volunteers team you'll see. And earlier in the season, there was that game in Gainesville. A lot of us kind of expected Tennessee to come away with that one, losing 16-29. Going to Kentucky a couple weeks ago, you win 33-27. I mean, what's going to separate this team on the road? Like, how are they going to get over that hump and win another game on the road? Mizzou is statistically better than both those teams. But what's going to separate it from being that lost team, the team that's going to lose from the team that's going to win for Tennessee?
I think you answered it. It's got to be on the road. It's going to happen on the road. That's what we've been talking about the whole time. We got to carry Neyland Stadium with us in these difficult environments. We got to pack everything up. We got to go play the way we're supposed to play, the same way we play at home in Knoxville. We got to play that same way in Columbia, which is tough. Fans going to be screaming at you, Everybody going to have, I don't know if y'all wear tiger hats or whatever it is, but they're going to be all over them right there, Nobody likes staying in a hotel all night. Everybody wants to be in the comforts of their home. Your family probably not going to travel all the way out there, right? So we got to focus. It's all about us. We got to go play football at a high level, in an opposing stadium in the SEC, which is very, very, very difficult. That's the maturation process. That's the next step for Tennessee. We did it against Kentucky. I wouldn't say we did it to the level that was like, but I'll take it. I'll take it. Because you remember after watching that Florida game, it looked like two different teams. Watching second half, I said it looked like they gave out Benadryl at halftime or something because we came out against Alabama and we did like we never seen a football. So that is the difference right there. Are we going to start the same way we did before? The last couple of weeks has been better, right? And are we going to go in there and make the adjustments to come out there? And this is going to be a difficult game to go out there and pull out a win, right? So that's going to be the key for us to see that. So that is the difference, I think, between an upper echelon team at the big boy table and, you got a little time to wait.
We always like to ask this question to our guests that used to play. You obviously, like Milton touched on earlier, 8th in rushing yards in Tennessee. You're very accomplished in that. Do you have like a favorite moment from your playing days, a favorite game, anything like that?
Man, that's tough. I probably would say, people always say the Alabama game. I love that game. That is probably the play. And it's not just for the play, right? It was the reason. Not because of what happened. It's because of everything we put into that play. We never ran that play before, but I'm gonna tell you this: we practiced that play in the spring. We practice it in fall camp. We practice it every week. And to the point where we were like, why are we practicing this play we don't run? Okay? It had a little wrinkle in there. And Coach Fulmer made such a big deal about this play. And I was like, man, I just really don't like this play. So when the play was called, we all laughed in the huddle like, man, okay, this play better work, And it did. It had a little wrinkle to it. The play was called 6 dog, We pulled. It didn't work out the way we thought it would, right? But we had so many reps invested in that play that it was wide open. So I always say that was my favorite play. It was the easiest play right there. My grandma could have ran through that hole. It was wide open. They blocked everybody, right? Yeah. And then I ran around the edge. And the moment we just did the same, we did what we've been practicing to do. What we've been practicing. We did what we trained to do in that high impact situation, right? High pressure situation. We were able to execute because of the reps invested in it.
Yeah, that felt that the end of that answer feels like someone who's been coaching a lot too. You're like, the offensive line executed perfectly. That feels like a coach's favorite play too.
Yeah, it is a coach's favorite play. It's an old guy's favorite play too.
There
so
you
it's
go.
Good stuff. I think they should still put that play back in. What do you think right there?
I think, yeah. If you have the offensive line for it, I feel like nowadays that play will just get called back for a hold.
I think you're right. You're probably spot on that. Y'all will see us line up in the eye, and a ref will be like, "I'm calling holding right now."
Yeah, he throw the flag before the play starts. Well, yeah, Jay, this has been awesome. That's interesting too. I just had another note going back to like what you said about the road. Taking Neyland Stadium with you. That's been a Drinkwitz problem for the last 4 seasons. Is just whatever form they can find at home does not seem to translate. Like even in that Kentucky game for, essentially a quarter plus to some extent before they ran a fake punt, that game looked like it was going the same way. So that's definitely, a similar, they've had a similar kind of problem on the road all year. So we're grateful, I know, and Mizzou fans are, that this game is not in Neyland again after what happened last year.
Well, I appreciate everything. I appreciate you guys having me. And it's been this is gonna be an interesting game. I'm gonna give y'all my score prediction like I did before. Okay,
go for it.
I'm going 42-35 Tennessee. Don't be mad at me. Don't boo me. I think it's gonna be a close game. I think it's gonna be within a touchdown. I think it could easily flip the other way. I think about the you got those those factors, right? Turnovers, penalties that can affect the game. I know it's going to be within a touchdown. I think it's going to be a high scoring game, and I think the last part of the quarter, some things are going to break that last back half of the fourth quarter. So who gets the ball at the beginning of the game, to me, is going to be a key to this game. So,
yeah, I think that's sound. Well, Jay, yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We'll definitely have to have you, back on just to talk more Tennessee college football down the road. But yeah, this was awesome. We'll see what goes down in Columbia on Saturday.
well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you, Jack, Kenny, Peyton. Y'all get after it, and if y'all win, I'll be okay. I'm gonna be hurt on Sunday. I'm gonna be hurt on Monday. Okay, I'll start healing. Well, my best friend is AJ O'Falele. We had him on the show. And I'm gonna tell you this: if we win, he said, if we win, he's gonna wear the checkerboard overall. So if y'all want to take that bet, okay.
Oh,
I don't know if I got
like
to order another
overalls.
pair. He's 6'7". I got a special order his. So I already got to order a couple pair. So if y'all want to do it, just text me. I ain't gonna put you on the spot here on the air. Okay. So just text me if you want to do it. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
I think we should do it.
Yeah,
I think we should do it.
I would go.
I think we should do it.
I would do it. I would do it. Let's do it.
Okay.
We'll do it.
Let's go.
All right.
I
It's
like
on.
it.
Should we come up with something that you have to do if Mizzou wins?
What I got to do?
I don't know. Kenny Peyton? What do we think?
Oh gosh.
I'm trying to think of a Mizzou tradition. Maybe just like tweet MIZ with just no. No, that's a little harsh. No, that's a little harsh.
That's really harsh. That's like punitive. That's like terrible for me. Okay.
We can think of something.
Yeah, we'll think of something.
Y'all think of something. Let me know.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll let you know. All right. Cool. Thank you for coming on, Jay. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, we now welcome on a very, very special guest. We kind of teased it in our last episode that we've been talking with him, or that we would be talking with him. But he is one of the huge Mizzou recruits in the 2024 class. It's Trent Burns. He's joining the show. We're going to talk to him. Trent, thank you so much for coming on. You're obviously one of the guys in this super hyped class of 2024 for Dennis Gates. We know we've been talking a ton on this show about like how well he's recruiting. And the first thing I want to ask you is, I know there's always like, people will post high school tape of just these like elite high school guys just going off. And I know some people will say like, imagine, you just had math class all day and then you have to go out and face someone like a Zion in high school. Do you ever think about you're that guy? You're the, he's how tall? He's going where? Like, are you, you ever think about being that guy for some of these kids?
I actually haven't. I always people always said that again going at Zion after math class, but I guess now I'm the 7'3" after algebra test. I guess that might be.
Yeah, you're that guy. They we know I watched a little bit of your film, and I'm going to ask you about this at the end in terms of who some of your favorite NBA guys are. But it's giving me Baby Wemby vibes. I won't lie. I know that's a lot to throw on considering how good he is. But I mean, your skill set's very, very impressive, man.
Yes, I'm trying to get there. Got to get my ball handle
for sure.
Yes,
before you get there, you're still finishing out your high school career. But when you were looking at the recruiting, I'm from Houston as well. I know Mizzou is far away. It's a 12-hour drive. But what really stood out, about the facilities that Mizzou basketball has, from the campus to just Columbia as a whole, that really made you think that's home?
First off, Coach Gates, he came at me really hard. First, I got a call, said the number, unknown number. He says, Coach Gates, I'm offering you a scholarship. And it was just shock. And then kept going on with the recruiting process, came up for a visit. I think my first night we went to dinner and I got noticed at dinner. And then we returned to campus. Some guys came up to me and they noticed me. So I just felt like I was really wanted, not only by coaches, by the city. So
I mean, that's got to be a great feeling too. I mean, when you went to these other visits, was it like that? Was it the same kind of feelings going up and people coming up to you?
No, that was actually the first time somebody that wasn't with basketball that came up to me, just a regular person.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me about the Mizzou fans at all. And them being excited to see who's on campus, especially with what Dennis has been doing with all the recruiting.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Dennis was the one that just called you almost out of the blue and just offered you a scholarship. How often does he check in on you? And what have you kind of learned from him so far, just about the program or just him in general?
We talk multiple times a week. He's very, very persistent in calling me, talking to me, not just about stuff on the court, but off the court. And then he just makes it known that he wants me to be the most official in my minutes. On the court, he sees the potential to stretch the floor so I could help him. I could fit in with the offense really easily. And then he just wants me to be the best person, come out of he says I have a shell. He wants me to come out of my shell, and then thinks I'll be the next lottery pick. He says we're doing everything all the way to the green room.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like what we hear a lot from recruits. We also hear a lot about how a lot of Mizzou's recruits have great relationships with the assistants. CY in particular always stands out in that regard. So I'm curious, have you really talked to the assistants a lot? What's your relationship with them like?
Well, I actually hadn't talked to them at all until I got on the visit. Coach Gates he was crazy. He said he wanted to be the only one that I talked to leading up to the visit. I didn't meet them until like 2 days before the visit. We all got on a Zoom talk. That's when I met them. And then on the visit, I got all their numbers, talked to all the coaches. They all brought me in, told me it would be like a family. They saw the potential. And now I text them every now and then, but Coach Gates is really the one that just came after me the most.
Yeah, definitely. That's super interesting that was kind of his recruiting strategy, because I think the thing we always hear is like, he does rely on a lot of his assistants to like do a lot of that, but he's definitely got a firsthand involvement, as well. We talked just before jumping on here about the current team. Now I'm curious with the way you play. We know Mizzou added Connor Vanover this offseason. And he's kind of a taller center who, like you mentioned, can stretch the floor. Is he someone, I know he can't play the first couple games of the year, but is he someone that as you watch this year's Mizzou team, you might try and take some, or at least see how he's fitting into Gates' system and maybe try and do the same once you get there?
Definitely. When I was on my visit, I saw their practice, and I just saw that he runs to the corners for threes, and I just felt like I could fit in the same way he does, and then I can just watch all year and learn from the things he succeeds with and stuff that he may struggle with, and try to prepare myself so I won't struggle in those areas.
Yeah, definitely. And then, I'm curious, just like with how stuff's been going for you, this season. Obviously high school ball is kind of getting underway. And then, how was the last summer for you, just on the AAU circuit and stuff like that?
It was a great summer. I had a lot of fun on the URBO circuit. A lot of people say I blew up out of nowhere. Got offers in the first place. So it was a good experience.
Definitely.
And I mean, looking at this upcoming, the current season you're in right now, and then into the spring, I know some guys like to enroll a little bit early. I mean, what's the status on that? Are you kind of expecting to finish out, the year that you're having right now, or are you wanting to get with the Tigers as soon as you can?
I will finish out my year in Houston, but I will come up earlier because I can finish my school. I'll be done with school a little bit earlier than most high school.
Sure.
Just want to jump back to kind of how you maybe fit like with the Tigers. I know Dennis, he loves to, it seems like every single recruit gives the phrase, Coach Gates and the staff want me to play just free is the word I see a lot. Is that kind of what Dennis sold to you, or maybe something a little different?
Oh, for sure. I told him when he asked me what I was looking for, I just said I wanted to feel like I could play and not be looking over my shoulder. He said that's exactly how it is in Missouri. And I talked to Ant on my visit. He said he feels like he can just play freely. So that was a big part of my decision.
Yeah. You mentioned Ant, and I know you talked about him, getting he got some big minutes obviously in game one, but you sort of answered it. But is he one of have you talked to anyone else on the team currently, just kind of to get a vibe from their perspective, or even while you were on your visit, were able to meet some guys and sort of start to build some of those relationships?
I was with the whole team. We all had a good time, talked to all of them, met them all. Everybody's cool. It's like a family. Everybody's like brothers, so it was great.
Yeah.
Kind of want to talk a little bit more about, your own play. We can read, what other people have to say about you, what they think are your strengths. I kind of want to know what you see as like your number one strength, and then something that you still want to improve on before you get to the college level.
Strengths. I feel like when I'm on the court, I deter people from the rim. I've seen people just not even try to go for a layup. They see how much I block shots, and then stretching the floor, bringing out big so that they can't protect the rim. I feel like that helps the team that I'm on all the time. And then weaknesses, I just want to try to get stronger. Don't want to go in being a weak freshman. Try to establish some core, some lower body, and then work on my ball handle so I could get that Wemby country.
Yeah, make those moves like Wemby. Yeah, I would be deterred if you were running at the rim. I think I speak for most everybody. I would be deterred if I was trying to put up a layup against you.
Yeah. We'll just look at the kick it out.
Yep. Pass out of it.
For a guy your size too, I mean, I don't know when you stopped growing, but I mean, is it kind of tougher to kind of put on some weight and just stick to it, or is it like something? It's like a longer kind of journey to get to the weight, the size you want to be.
It's definitely not. It's not gonna happen overnight. Coach Gates even told me he doesn't want me to try to throw on a bunch of unnecessary weight. He wants me to be functional weight, functional strength. It's not gonna. It'll take a few years, but I'm always working at it.
Yeah.
But it has to be tougher. Always growing. So.
And just kind of switching to a more fun question here. I mean, I've heard that your nickname is Scoop. Is that true? And can you give the backstory to that?
That's true. You did your research. So when I was little, well, even now, but growing up, I was always eating ice cream. And it used to be Super Scoop because I would get so much ice cream. But then it stuck to Scoop because of how many ice cream scoops that I've broken in my lifetime. So my dad called me Scoop.
That's awesome. What's your favorite? What's your go-to ice cream? If you have to pick just one. Cookies and cream?
Yes.
That's the right answer.
Well,
there's some good
NIL deal.
Yeah. Reach out. I was gonna
calling.
say there's some good ice cream places in Columbia. I'm curious too. You mentioned your visit and people coming up to you, and you seem to get a good vibe of the city in addition to like the team. Is there I know you weren't there for long, but did you any particulars about the city that you just enjoyed? The three of us were outsiders to Columbia before we went to Mizzou, so I was just curious what your vibe on it was.
Everybody was nice. Like everybody was nice. The weather was nice when I was there. Just had a overall good time.
It's not going to be as warm as Texas in the winter. Kenny found that out. Our freshman
it's still
year.
not November here, so
yeah, you're lucky.
For sure. I walked around in shorts and a t-shirt this morning. Felt pretty good. It's nice here. But in this next question, another fun one here. We know you can play basketball, but I mean, were there any other sports growing up that like you played that you wanted to kind of pursue? And if you weren't a basketball player, what sport would you want to play at the college level?
I'd definitely be playing baseball if I wasn't playing basketball. I played baseball for the longest, and then I just kept growing, so then started taking basketball more seriously. But I was better at baseball for a long time than I was at basketball.
What position were you? Yeah. What position?
I used to play pitcher and first base.
Okay. You would have had a huge strike zone too if you had continued to play.
Yeah.
It would have been something against you.
We might need Carrick might need to hit him up. He could do a 2-sport. Put him as a pitcher. That'd be fun. Okay, I'm curious. We've made the Wemby comparisons, Trent. But I'm sure I'm a huge NBA guy, and I'm growing up playing this sport. I'm curious who your kind of maybe basketball idols were growing up, and who you maybe like to watch on the pro level that you maybe model your game after, or just guys that you enjoy watching.
Growing up, I feel like everybody can guess this, but KD was always my favorite player. So then,
yeah.
But I watch a lot of the bigs. I watch Kristaps Porzingis. I like how Jokic passes the ball, and obviously when he came in and caused havoc, so he's one of my favorite.
Yeah. Him and Chet both are just like.
Oh yeah, I watched Chet all through high school. I watched him go all the way up.
Are you a Rockets guy then, being from Houston?
I just cheer for whoever KD's on.
There you
Whatever
go.
team.
Follower.
But
Nice.
now I'm cheering for the Spurs.
Yeah, of
Mhm.
course. Of course. He got the
Were you
better
an-
KD.
Were you an Astros fan though? Hey, you played baseball. Were you a fan of the sport as well?
I couldn't watch baseball. It's so slow.
I'm
get
right there
you.
with you, Trent. We like Kenny and Peyton and I, we beef over kind of baseball. They're big baseball guys, but I'm also I think it's just a little bit too slow. I'm curious, just any other like, final things that you just want, the Mizzou community to kind of know about you. I know like fans are just so excited for you and the rest of this, really, really talented class. Have you maybe talked to any of them, whether it's like Peyton Marshall, I know Enor Boateng, Marcus Allen, Theo Barrett, all those guys. Do you guys chat at all in terms of, being kind of the future for this team?
I haven't talked to them much, but I just know we're going to come to Mizzou and we're going to put on a show. Sure.
There you go. There you go. Well then, yeah. Oh, and then my other last thing I remembered too, on the AAU circuit, are there any other of those 2024 guys or even guys you maybe went against, that are in college now or whatever that you kind of enjoyed playing against that you, kind of remember facing? I know that's kind of putting you on the spot, but
No, not really.
no, you got the better of all of them. They didn't want to go to the rim.
They don't want to go there.
Yeah, they didn't want to go to the rim. That's the lesson. Well, Trent, yes, that's
think
pretty much all we got, I think. Oh.
I was going to say, I think my favorite game that we played was the New Heights Lightning game. That game atmosphere was crazy. There was a bunch of people, and we came out with upset. They were the favorites to win it all, but we ended up beating them pretty good.
There you go. Pulled off the upset. Well, yeah, I mean, Trent, we're, I know I can speak for all Mizzou fans there. We're super excited to see you, suit up here next season. And, now you're a recurring guest. So if we reach out, you have to, you're required to come back on and talk to us more about whether it's Wemby or, you balling out in for Mizzou or even with the rest of your high school season. But we really appreciate you taking the time and best of luck this year.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all having me on.
Thanks, Trent. Okay, quick hits time. Kenny, start us off. Your jersey of the week.
I thought it was only fitting to give this jersey of the week to Cody Schrader. We just heard from Jay 2 segments ago, talking him up. But Cody Schrader is now a semifinalist for the Burlsworth Trophy. Goes to the best walk-on, who's now really contributing to their Division I program. And of course, we know Cody Schrader is one of the best running backs in the SEC at the moment. And we talked about it, I think a week ago, even maybe over a week ago, that he was on the watch list, now a semifinalist. This is back-to-back years. Mizzou has had semifinalists. Pretty good award. I mean, to be on the semifinalist list for Cody Schrader.
Yeah, well-deserved. My jersey of the week, it'll be the only non-Mizzou related item, I believe. Craig Counsell Brewers hoodie. Craig Counsell, the best manager in baseball, has spurned his hometown Brewers. See you muting my mic. Don't mute my mic. Anyways, he has spurned his hometown Milwaukee Brewers. He's left the suburbs for a big city. He signed the biggest deal a manager has ever signed in Chicago. 5 years, $40 million. Now he will be able to get the most out of a roster that actually invests money into it. So big deal for the Cubs.
Yeah, my jersey of the week, I'm giving it to a former Missouri men's basketball player, Mohamed Diarra, of course, who left the Tigers for NC State. He had a good game in his first outing, had a double-double, 10 points and 14 rebounds. Good to see Mohamed Diarra excelling at another program. I don't think, he had a lot of expectations being a high JUCO guy. It didn't really work out for him at Mizzou. I think he quote tweeted like NC State's on 3 guy who like posted about it and, said like kind of this is his time and stuff. So good to see Mohamed doing good stuff with the Wolf Pack, Peyton's Wolf Pack.
Raleigh. Another big man might be coming from Raleigh to Mizzou soon. Who knows?
Hey, don't tease that yet. Best number 23 in the state of North Carolina. That's my only takeaway.
Facts.
Okay. Unwritten's
Uh,
Fantastic Four picks. These are our current records through week 9. Jack, you are 17, 16, and 3. You are tied with me for second still, with Peyton in first at 22, 11, and 3. To start this week.
It's a battle for last.
Yeah, it's battle for last, like it always is.
It always is.
At least I'm not like 10 points behind like I used to be. But first game on the docket is Browns versus Ravens.
You haven't picked a tie yet.
Yeah, we haven't picked a tie. But Browns versus Ravens, -6.5. And right now, Peyton and myself are taking the Browns. Jack, you're rolling with the Ravens.
Yeah, my only logic on this, Seahawks, my team, beat the Browns, lost horribly to the Ravens. Therefore, the Ravens are better than the Browns by the transitive property. I will be picking the Ravens. I will not be surprised the Browns defense get the better of Lamar and co. If the Browns were an NFC team, I would be easily picking the Ravens because he's now 17-1 against the NFC, but could be tough against this AFC North foe. I get that. But I'm gonna stick with the Ravens here.
You got to remember, you're not picking the winner. You're picking the spread.
I know.
So I'm picking the Browns, not with the expectation that they'll win, but 7's too big a number.
They play good defense too. Second game on the docket is Texans at Bengals. Bengals are now favored by 7 points, where it's a clean sweep at the moment. We're all taking the Bengals. And I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the injury report for the Houston Texans. These are the guys who did not practice on Wednesday, recording here on a Thursday. Will Anderson, Andrew Beck, Blake Cashman, Kaimi Fairbairn, Jake Hansen, Brevin Jordan, Steven Nelson, Damian Pierce, Laramie Tunsil, Jimmy Ward, Robert Woods, Nico Collins. Those are all guys who play.
Jesus.
Those aren't just guys who are depth or on special teams. Those guys play on offense and defense. And then along with Kaimi Fairbairn, who's going to be out for a little bit. There's a lot of guys who are limited practice as well. Some starters. But, man, it does not look like a healthy week for the Texans.
And that is
Certainly
why
not.
I'm going with the Bengals.
Yeah, Joe is fully back. This is a really, really scary team now. The AFC North is so good, by the way.
Bengals could still be banged up at wide receiver as well. So it's a crapshoot, but it's not a crapshoot when the Texans kind of roll out that kind of injury report.
CJ Stroud, though, Kenny, I think you deserve like 10 seconds to praise his game because, oh my God.
The only thing I'll say is that, he did win AFC Offensive Player of the Week, but he also touched on that all athletes want to be baseball players. And I think that was pretty fun. That quote kind of went viral as well. MLB picked it up. Every outlet picked it up. CJ just seems like a fun guy. He was at the Rockets game last night as well. Wore a Jay Sean Tate jersey, both Ohio State alumni.
Oh yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Shout.
Jay Sean Tate was on our Guest at College, which you might be wondering, where's Guest at College? It'll be in Ken's Sports Shorts for the Monday episodes.
Did you put a banner in Houston Stadium for Offensive Player of the Week?
No, we're not
might
the
be
Colts.
the biggest Texans accomplishment they've
Also
had.
not Houston Stadium, it's NRG.
I didn't remember the name of it. The Astrodome. Next.
It's where the Texas Bowl is played. Moving on.
Third game on the docket, 49ers at Jaguars. The 49ers are favored by 3 points. You could say it could be 6. Jack and Peyton both taking the 49ers. I'm going to throw it to Peyton here first.
Yeah, I'm taking the 49ers. I would have taken the Jaguars, but big news. Steve Wilks, Mizzou's defensive coordinator in 2021. What a fun year that was. He's the 49ers DC now. He's coaching on the field. He's moving. It was big news at a 49ers game this week. He's moving from the box down to the field. This is the stuff that galvanizes teams. So give me the Niners.
Yeah, this is a good game. I don't know. I guess it's in Jacksonville, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I still like Brock and the 49ers. They've been kind of struggling the last couple of games, but with this basically being, the 49ers favorite on the road, I like them in this one. And yeah, Steve Wilks is on the field. That's huge.
Jaguars have won their last 5 games. Their last loss came to the Texans. That's why I'm kind of rolling with the Jags. They're still hot. The Texans got them hot. But I really like the Steve Wilks connection there, Peyton. And if I would change my mind, I would, just because of that. Last game on the docket, Commanders at Seahawks, the Jack Knowlton Bowl. His Seahawks are favored by 6.5 points. Jack and Peyton are both taking the Seahawks. Be a little bit different. I'm taking the Commanders.
I stand with you, Jack.
They better win this game. It was such an ugly game against the Ravens, and like the Commanders aren't good, and it's a home game. The schedule like this, Seattle still has to play the 49ers twice and the Eagles. And if they want to sneak into the playoffs, this is a must win, I think. So yeah, give me the Hawks. Hopefully they can not lay an egg like they did against Lamar last week. But thank you, Peyton, for standing alongside. Maybe Drew Lock will play. People are getting pretty sick of Geno in Seahawks world. I'm just saying, maybe something to keep an eye on if it really starts to spiral.
I want to
Kenny?
note a fun coincidence here for the Commanders against bird teams. We do like to make some bird puns, from Dirty Bird to the Sean East main bird of the week. The Commanders were the team that ended the Ravens preseason record, beating them 29-28 in the preseason. Going into the regular season, the Commanders beat the Cardinals, kept it close going into overtime against the Eagles the first time around, beat the Falcons on the road, kept it close with the Eagles again at home, losing by a touchdown. Seahawks are a bird team. They're going on the road.
That is
Different
some
bird.
good logic. Ron
Don't
Rivera
count 'em
handle-
out.
sees red when he sees a bird.
Ron Rivera doesn't do anything anymore, so he just stands there.
He
wears his
doesn't even
glasses.
talk to them at halftime.
Yeah, just stands there. All right, Sean, what's the next?
I
segment?
like no capping. He's the main bird.
Somebody's main bird of the week. Kenny.
Sean East main bird of the week goes to Sean East. Good friend Callum McAndrew of the Columbia Daily Tribune posted this photo after this week's game. Was it Monday or Tuesday? Noah Carter
Monday.
and Sean East. It was on Monday. Sean East and Noah Carter standing in some yellow and purple jumpsuits underneath the basket, taking some photos. Kind of a fun little, maybe a little traditional to do after some wins now. Good to see those guys having some fun at the start of the season.
I think we should be the first to say Sean East is fully out of his shell. Whatever shell he might have been in last year, I think he's fully come out of his shell. We're seeing the true Sean this season. It's fun, Sean. I like this Sean. Friend of the show, Noah Carter, too. Shout out to them for that. Those are fun fits.
My main bird of the week. We're gonna stick with that 2021 Missouri team. One for the ages. I'm sure everyone thinks about them a lot. Connor Bazelak, the quarterback of that football team. He's going back to a bowl game, folks. He, if you didn't know, is the starting quarterback for the Bowling Green Falcons. Last night, actually, in some action, got a 49-19 victory over the Kent State Golden Flashes. He went 13 for 19 for 188 yards and a touchdown and a pick. And yeah, the Connor Bazelak bowl game streak ended last year because he was at Indiana and that didn't go well. But he's back on it. Bowling Green, baby. Up the Falcons.
No,
Indiana.
don't up the Falcons. They made me lose my best beat last week when I was trying to make a connection to Mizzou with Connor Bazelak.
yeah.
Ended up
Thank
winning the
you,
game.
Falcons.
Did not cover. Shout out Bet Online.
Shut up, Bet Online. I forgot. Wait, no, I just totally blanked. Oh, yes, I remember. Indiana ditching Michael Penix for Connor Bazelak is something nowadays.
Yeah.
Played
Think
out
about
well.
that. That's what they did. They let Penix go and then brought in Bazelak. They went from one quarterback to another quarterback. That's all I'll say. My main bird of the week, I don't really have any connection. Oh, he has an offer from Kansas. They're a bird team. But he doesn't have him in their top 4. I'm giving my main bird of the week to top 10 2024 center Jayden Quaintance, who is now down to 4 schools, including Mizzou, along with Kentucky, Florida, Ohio, and Ohio State. He's only looking at this Tipton tweet. He's only 16, so he's going to have to play 2 years of college before he reaches that 18-year-old threshold to go to the league. So, he's a young player, very, very talented, and could add to this really good Mizzou 2024 class if he picks the Tigers. And then do we have his commitment date? No,
he hasn't announced a commitment.
he hasn't picked his commitment date, but we know the 4 teams, and Mizzou is one of them. And Peyton, I think you said it on another show we did that, like, if Mizzou picks this guy up, it'll easily cement them probably at number 2, at least in all of the rankings for 2024 recruiting, across all the platforms.
Yeah, because John Shire is trying super hard. Just can't let Dennis Gates have his fun. But no, and if you read the quotes here, I mean, like, Jayden Quaintance's reasoning for even having Florida in. I mean, it was such a throwaway pick. His quotes for Mizzou and Kentucky are longer. That's kind of what we expected. It's big to get the G League out of here because that was what a lot of people are afraid of. I know Quintance said in that On3 article he's looking for somewhere where he can develop, somewhere he can play free. And if you hear our upcoming interview with Trent Burns, spoiler alert, you're going to hear like that's just exactly what Dennis bills to these recruits. So Mizzou's put itself in as good a position as possible. Whether they get them or not, it's not the end of the world if they don't, but it is super cool if they do.
People have already
Yeah,
heard the
definitely.
Trent Burns interview by the time they're listening to Quick Hits.
Oh, is that second? Well, you can cut
That
this
was
part
second, yes.
Now we know who doesn't edit the show together.
out. It was never me.
Best thing you learned, Peyton.
Best thing I learned this week, just a small one here. Theo Wease, I mean, he has just been an absolute monster pickup for Mizzou. Really blossomed in Kirby Moore's offense this year. This is a tweet from PFF College. Leader in contested catches this season, Theo Wease with 13. Good Lord. I mean, that was what Mizzou needed him to be when they picked him up. Just be that jump ball guy on the outside that can win 50-50 balls. Let Luther Burden eat in the slot. He has been that and then some. Feels like every other jump ball Brady Cook throws up to him is caught. I mean, they got a little too confident in that against Georgia, but so he's been such a dynamite pickup. Really has been a great season for him.
Staying on the football team, another guy who was a transfer 2 years ago, Tyron Hopper, who's had kind of an up and down year that we've noticed just watching with our own eyes, from tackling to maybe just some miscues. Still having a good year. He's a semifinalist for the Butkus Award. Just some more award seasons, more semifinalists watch list that we'll be throwing out here. And Tyron Hopper, another award to look out for.
Mizzou loves award nomination season. They don't always win them, but they get nominated for a lot of them. So we'll keep track of it all for you. My best thing I learned this week, I'm going back to men's basketball recruiting. The window for everyone to sign, or for the 2024 commits to sign their NLI, National Letters of Intent, opened yesterday, and all of Mizzou's 2024 commits so far signed them. I'm giving officially, I made it Peyton Marshall as the best thing I learned because I Bleav he was the first one to do it. But yeah, Peyton Marshall, Theo Barrett, and our Boateng. Oh my gosh, Trent
Marcus
Burns, of
Allen.
course, and Marcus Allen have all signed their NLIs to play for Mizzou. So they got all those guys locked down in their really, really good 2024 class. And yeah, with that, no, I mean, there's nothing really to say. Dennis, that's all I can say is Dennis. Dennis is him. And with that, we are going to close the show. We're going to do a quick preview of the Memphis game, Mizzou men's basketball versus Memphis. 10 things off. Just take a look at that game now, with the Tigers trying to go 2-0 in a tougher non-con than we've seen at this point in the season last year. So we'll take a quick look at that game to end the show. Okay, we're going to finish off the show. We're going to look at some more Mizzou basketball. We're going to do a preview of the Memphis game. Tigers take on Memphis on SEC Network at home. 8 p.m. tip-off for this game. Main thing, I think, right now is that obviously Penny Hardaway will not be on the sidelines for Memphis. But boys, this is a tough, also 8 p.m. tip-off. Absolutely brutal for all the writers out there meeting deadline. But that's an aside. But yeah, main thing, Penny Hardaway not on the sidelines. But guys, this is a bigger test. I said it in Quick Hits too. This is a lot bigger of a test that they're going to see at this point in the season than we saw, at this point last year with, a bigger-ish program coming to Como in game 2.
Yeah, no, this would have been the best non-con Mizzou had last year up until Kansas. Memphis is a very solid team. Should probably be a tournament team. They were 9 seed last year. People forget that probably should have knocked off an FAU team that went on to the Final Four. So it's definitely a big test for Mizzou. A lot of new faces here. I mean, you have Jaquan Walton, who's there at Memphis now, who's he was the third program that he committed to was Memphis in the offseason. But he is a dynamic scorer. He was their leading scorer in their first game against Jackson State. He put up 19 points, 7 of 11 shooting, 3 for 4 from deep. They have Jordan Brown, a transfer from UL Lafayette, who is going to be a handful for Mizzou, especially. This is where not having Connor Vanover is going to wind up hurting because he is going to be probably their biggest test on the inside. And Javon Quinterly, I mean, he's a familiar face to Mizzou fans. Was the point guard at Alabama for a good number of years. He's at Memphis now. He started for them against Jackson State. I don't see any reason that would change against Missouri. But Missouri, they have the benefit of getting Memphis at home. You have to largely be very pleased with what you saw from Mizzou against Pine Bluff. You can't take a lot away from it, but going to be a good test for Mizzou and a good resume builder if they can get the win.
Yeah, we talked about that with Drew King in our basketball preview. Looking at this non-con slate compared to last year, a lot of guys coming in. It was new head coach in Dennis Gates. How are these transfers going to mesh? And coming to this year, team looks a lot different too. But it's a different program. This program made it to the tournament, and Dennis Gates, he's built trust in his players, in the fans, and just everyone at Mizzou that they can get things done. And getting a better non-con can always play better into the SEC play as well. You're facing better teams early. This system is built within some of these starters already, and some of the other starters that from Caleb Grill to Tamar Bates. These are experienced guys, just like how it was last year when they came in. It's great to get this Memphis game early. We talked about Connor Vanover being out. He has another game, and then he'll be back for Minnesota. It's playing in that. Was it like a tournament this past off season?
Yeah, the Portsmouth Invitational. It's like an exposure thing for like NBA guys or people who are kind of on that bubble. But I guess
he was in it
you're
before
not allowed
he
to
knew
do that.
he was
Apparently.
coming back. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Bummer. I think it's dumb.
We heard also just listening to some other stuff that's going on that Dejon Gordon was also in a similar situation a couple years ago, which I don't even remember that. But it's good to get it out of the way early for Connor Vanover. Dennis Gates did mention in the press conference it kind of sucks for a guy that's in his last year of eligibility, and they couldn't cut him some slack from thinking about going pro and staying back in college. At the end of the day, when you get him back, and it's a kind of exciting to see how Connor Vanover mixes into this rotation.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting game, I think. What Memphis will be able to bring without their head coach, I think is a big question mark. Peyton mentioned Jaquan Walton. Mizzou fans will be really familiar with him too because he spent 2 years at Georgia, and then last year he was at Wichita State, and he had 14 points and 10 boards in that overtime loss to Mizzou. So he's a guy that has hurt the Tigers before. Peyton mentioned Javon Quinterly too. He's really good. I know Alabama really wanted to keep him around for his just kind of facilitating and passing ability. So there's a couple guys there for sure that are going to be on Memphis's radar. But yeah, I mean, Kenny said it best. Like it's a nice early season test without your center. It's a good test of this team's depth. We'll see, how deep Dennis goes. And that's where I'll segue a little bit, guys, with this Arkansas Pine Bluff game is, how different do you think maybe some of the lineups will look, and how much depth do you think Dennis used? I know he even talked about he wanted to give minutes to everybody. And I know John Tonje wasn't quite ready. He said to go. I think he's a little bit injured as well. But Dennis even talked about not being bummed that he couldn't give minutes to Memore Jacques, the hero of the Tennessee game, and reminding me also that I need to start the walk-on ladder for the Soldier Benny Walk-on of the Year award. But yeah, what did you guys make of that Pine Bluff game, and how much of that depth do you think will be used against Memphis?
Yeah, it was weird. Like, that's just the first word that I think of, and not in a bad way. Let me also clarify that. It was just because last year, Mizzou's bench was not bad, but it was like you had 5 guys, really, and then you had 3 or 4 come off the bench, play decent minutes a night. It was like a revolving door. I mean, I was stunned at the amount of names like who was coming in and where they were playing, like just some of the rotations. It was really fascinating to see. Tamar Bates was far and away the best player in my mind. Caleb Grill also did stick out. He didn't have his deep, deep, deep stroke going, which is kind of unusual for him. Not really worried about it, just something I noticed. But I mean, he made up for it in a lot of ways. He got to the line a lot. He rebounded well, but the star of the show to me was Tamar Bates. And I'll let Kenny take it on a few others, but I mean, I don't think there was one set lineup that ran out there for more than 2 minutes. I mean, it was just constantly, and I love it. There's so many fun players. There's so many fun combinations to play with. It'll be a fun watch this season.
I know that Peyton and I, we didn't watch the game together. I guess we technically did watch the game together. We were talking to each other over a phone technically during this game. And when we saw Jose Carolero Martin walk out there, kind of a little bit of head scratcher to see him in that starting five. Great passer. I will note that. We even talked about it months ago, back in May or April, when he committed to the Tigers. We were looking at the starting five, and we mentioned this last show about who we thought the starting five would be. He was a guy we kind of threw in there. He's like, maybe he can go at the four. Maybe, he could be one of those forwards that starts in the game. Ended up only playing 10 minutes. He did draw 3 personal fouls, and that's where I want to go from there. Is the personal fouls it kind of sucked. That's one thorn. And Dennis Gates mentioned that Aidan Shaw fouled out, Sean East fouled out. Great games from them, respectively. And Aidan Shaw was amazing on the boards, blocking, defense. If you get some more scoring from him, that's the guy you want. And we talked about Aidan Shaw's builds off this offseason. He's looked good. Caleb Grill, that was the number one standout to me behind Tamar Bates, just seeing how he really meshed into that offense. And Jack, you did a good job out there with your best Caleb Grill impression. Last thing I'll throw out there were some up and down performances. Nick Honor had some 3 balls that just weren't on track to really even be considered a make. And then you look at Noah Carter, not the strongest performance in the first half. Down the stretch in the fourth quarter, looked a lot better. Played a lot better defense, was finishing shots in the paint. And, we saw a lot of up and down for Noah Carter last year. Looks like he's trying to get those kinks out early.
I think you mean second half.
Yeah, it was for
he's been covering a lot of Pacers
second
games.
half. Yeah. The fourth quarter is a little bit. Second. Yeah. Oh my gosh, what am I saying? Yeah, second half.
It's
working too many NBA games.
Yeah, you're actually identifying the annoying problem of college men's basketball, which is the only league that does halves for some reason instead of quarters like everything else. But that aside, your point stands. Yeah, the fouling jumps out to me. And yeah, the highlights I've seen, Tamar Bates looked excellent. Aidan Shaw looked excellent. And Carolero, to your point, kind of did the thing that, I know he ran into foul trouble, but he kind of did the thing that I think both of you guys said Vanover might do when we talked to Drew, which was, he might start, but it'll probably be that first guy taken out. He only played the 10 minutes. And obviously it's hard to tell truly what that set rotation will be with Dennis Gates right now. Just flipping people, out every 2 minutes makes it, again, brutal on people reporting the game with how much subbing they have to report on. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of positives to take away. My favorite part of the whole endeavor was Dennis, right after the game, he was asked what went well. And the first thing he said was, we fouled too much away from the basket and we didn't make our free throws. So a perfectionist as ever. As Dennis Gates actually did go 17 for 19 from the line. Might not have been free throws. It was some other throwaway. We didn't do this well. Probably the assist to turnover ratio. He loves that too. But yeah, it's definitely a good building block. I mean, they handled their business in the end, and there's some intriguing faces, I think, to see. Trent a little bit. A lot of the freshmen played. I think there were more minutes than we thought we'd see from guys like Anthony Robinson, even Jordan Butler, who in the highlights I saw, I think he made a 3, had a couple decent plays defensively. So, Drew was kind of right with those guys. They're coming along just fine. But any other final quick thoughts before, Memphis happens and we see kind of really where this team is?
I mean, there's definitely still some things you want to see improve. Like, you don't want Mizzou giving up like 74 a night, especially to Arkansas Pine Bluff. But overall, I I kind of can't find a ton of things to totally critique. Like, yes, you don't want them to foul, but it felt like a lot of stuff was just not being let go by that crew. It's early in the season for them as well. They got to make sure their whistles still work. Uh, but yeah, I mean, there was just the depth on this team just seems like it could be really, really special. And if Mizzou can get somebody to step up, be that number one go-to guy, maybe it is Tamar Bates, maybe it is Caleb Grill if Caleb Grill can get his three-point shot going. It just seems like it could be a top to bottom stronger team than last year. Maybe not having that top premier talent like they did last year, but this still does strike me as a team that can throw a lot of elbows.
I do like that, and the depth is what really just stood out. That was incredible, and I'm not, Memphis isn't a pushover. It is a step above Arkansas Pine Bluff. It's a multiple steps above. We know that, and I'm interested to see where this depth goes against a team like Memphis. How many guys are going to get in this rotation? You saw a lot of freshmen playing, and even when we had Trent Burns on here, Trent was like, he was kind of excited. He kind of perked up when he talked about Anthony Robinson playing 12 minutes, 14 minutes. It was, it's just something that really interested him. It's interesting to see where that depth goes in a game against a team like Memphis.
Yeah, definitely. I think this will be a good test even without Penny Hardaway. I forgot his son's on Memphis. Ashton Hardaway, I believe is his name.
Did not know
so
that.
He played 10 minutes against Jackson State. I do not think he scored. So I don't know what role, but Missouri could get burned by a Hardaway, even with Penny not on the sidelines. But we'll see. Mizzou versus Memphis, 8 p.m. Friday night. So listen to this show and then go watch the game. But with that, that'll just about do it for us. We'll be on Saturday. We'll have a recap of the Tennessee game for you guys. So we'll either be really sad on there or maybe really happy with Mizzou getting maybe a big ranked win back on CBS. But until we speak then, everyone have a fun and safe weekend. Go enjoy the Tennessee game, and we will see you guys next time. This has been the Unwritten Rule presented by Bet Online.